For those comments. Are there any questions from the floor at this stage? Is there anybody who would like to? No? No questions at all? Lordy, lordy. We have one lady who's coming up to the microphone.
I just have the question.
And here on the left as well. Lovely, thank you.
Can I speak? Sorry, I'm Charlotte Echthoff.
Could you tell us first of all who you are and just...
Yeah, I'm Charlotte Echthoff. I'm doing a PhD in mass media science, and I wanted to ask the group, what do you think? Does public television really has to compete with private television? Or is it perhaps that we need an alternative? And then the public television can make education, and private television does whatever the ratings show what they have to do, and then the audience can decide between public and private television what they want to watch.
Essentially, is the German model a good model? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can answer the question, but I do think that a factor in considering it is that whether a program is, if a program is educational and we want children to learn from it, and this is getting away from the debate about whether or not television should be educational and what that means, but if children are not going to learn from it if they're not watching it. So first and foremost, what's on the screen has to engage kids. So it's very important that this kind of dichotomy between education and entertainment be brought together, because if we really want kids to be watching and learning from television, they have to come to the media because they find it engaging. And it is possible to have both educational and engaging content come together. And it's really the artful producer that can do that. And that's what we should really be pushing, is for quality television to be both educational and entertaining if we want to educate kids with television.
You
know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, the President Sarkozy forbidden advertising on the governmental channel in France. This was a very serious step, of course. And in this case, the governmental television in France, absolutely independent from the rating. A rating is instrument of the advertising, researching of the advertising agency, but at the same time, we have, in any case, private or public, private or governmental. The main problem, the television not be independent from the audience. We dream about independency from advertising, but we never dream about independency from the audience. And this is a problem. This is a real problem for all educational and culture program. Our society, I repeat again, not just in Russia, in Europe and the golden billion countries, this is a society of consumers. We want to transform this society to society of the more or less sophisticated people, you know. But these are very practical things. If you will be on the half step forward than audience is peer. You must, the educational of the white audience is a very delicate and very complicated question. You must walk with them. You must keep them near the screen. You know, this is a problem.
Jana, I'll come across to you in just a second, but just there was one lady up here who was first in row, I think. Yeah, there are several now. There are no men. It's all women who are standing up to ask questions. It's very interesting. Yeah.
My name is Antje Theine Grill. I'm the Deutsche Welle representative in South Africa. And I'd like to ask Trevor Huber, one of the basic pillars of education should be a stable democracy. Now, the South African government tried to impose a new media bill in South Africa that would have endangered one of the very pillars of democracy, the press of freedom. What do you have to say about that?
I agree with you. We have seen, I think in the recent past, efforts by the South African government to bring in legislation that limits the space for media and freedom of expression in the country. But we are encouraged by the role that civil society has played in pushing back on those efforts. And as I speak to you now, and as you'll be aware, there has been clear signs that the government has been under pressure from civil society, and government is making concessions that will result in a law that's very much different from what they were envisaging. So there are threats, there are certain worrying trends in South Africa around media, but I am comforted by the fact that civil society together with media are fighting to ensure that media freedoms in South Africa are not restricted.
So you're positive it won't be passed?
I can't say I'm positive it won't be passed. I can say that the public is speaking out, civil society is speaking out, the media is being active in ensuring that hopefully what comes out of it is not as bad as was originally anticipated 3 to 4 years ago.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got now lots and lots of people, yeah, but let's go to Jana first of all, yeah? See what you've got first of all.
Media have to compete with the public media. And Bill Bobbert says, the professors say we can't define quality, but panels seem to speak to it anyway, so could they give their definitions of quality?
Whoa, let's do that first. Definitions of quality starting on the left.
Start with me.
I've got to start somewhere.
Well, quality is an interesting word because oftentimes people think of quality as intentionally meaning high quality, but quality can be of any nature. And I think to define quality, it's an existential question, I guess, but when we're talking about high quality education, we're talking about educational program, we're talking about programming that respects the viewer and that engages and that provides something of value to the children that it's reaching.
Lynn.
I would second that with respect to the programs that we produce, as well as the programs that I think many people in this room consume every day, whether it's through television or radio or through the internet or through the print media. It's something that you sort of can feel, quality when you see it. It's perhaps defined differently for everyone, but my own personal definition, to use an analogy I used during my opening comments, it's kind of like nutrition. When you have good quality, it's good for you, you can feel it. There's a certain degree of energy you derive from it. It takes you farther than something which is of low quality, which might be entertaining only for the moment, but in the long run doesn't take you very far. You won't find that definition in the dictionary, but that when I think of the word quality, personally and with respect to media, that's what I think of, something that gives you a certain degree of ballast that keeps you going.
Mikosh, go ahead.
No, the problem with what does mean quality? This is a very serious question. For example, 42% of audience watch football game. 42. And how many people will look, I don't know, live airing of last performance in La Scala or in Bolshoi? At least 5% of audience. You know, this is a problem. This is not a television problem. I repeat again. This is a problem of society. How many educational, culture, creative people needs each society? 10%, 15, 12, I don't know. But in any case, it's never majority. We walk one hand, we want, if we make a children television, educational program for children or educational program for teenager, this one mission. If we talk about society in general, we must understand the high quality culture and educational program will look, I will be a great romantic if I say 20% of audience, at least 10, 12%. And of course, without this 10, 12%, society never will develop. These people, creative people, develop the society. But in any case, they never are majority, never. And we work for, if we talk about the culture and educational program, on one hand, we make a program for the common audience, and this is one criterion and one quality. If we make program for this creative part, this active part of society, we must make absolutely different product. We must look to the situation with open eyes, and without the public money or governmental money, the culture and education television never be exist. It's impossible. Or you must look as the United States, as a PBS, for example, public broadcasting system. They make a fundraising around their audience, and the very wide fundraising, if they have not the real governmental or money, you know. But the problem one of the problems, we was very tolerant, and we were polite, because nobody from us, I'm first said about the money. Because if we want to make the cultural television or educational television, of course we need the resources. Public resources or governmental resources, or maybe payment from personalities, as BBC system, for example. But in other cases, of course, I will in miracle. I believe in miracle. I want miracle. But unfortunately, I experience personally, you know.
Okay, we've had 3 definitions of quality. Let's see if we can move along a little bit faster with quick questions, quick answers. We've got one from the lady who's been waiting for a fair little while, very patiently. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jie. I am coming from Brussels. I'm an independent advisor in innovation and partnerships. I always believe in my mentors who told me, Frank, who told me that you can look at the glass half full or half empty. When I look at the media's role and also looking at the market pressure and the mission to educate, I think this missing piece right there, which is the role of the parents. What's your view? Because we are educated since our younger age, we are educated in our family environment and educated by the parents. So my question is, could we look at media as a partner for education, for the market, and for the education? Meaning that could media play a role guiding the parents educate their children? I think there's an opportunity for a partnership right there, public-private partnership. Thank you.
Well, not sure if I'm the one you expected to answer, but I have a view on it. And it goes back actually to what Lynn said, what I liked a lot, the comparison with nutrition. Because if we stay with that example, a good nutrition consists of a good mix. It has, you know, the cereal stuff and the fresh orange juice and all of the things we know, at least because we can feel it while consuming it, that it's good for us. Even if we would just eat that for a longer period of time, it would be pretty tough actually to have a happy life with eating cereals all day. And at the end of the day, it would even harm your body somehow. That's why sometimes you have your breakfast with ham and egg, and you might have sometimes in the evening a thick steak. But if you're well educated, you know this is not the way you eat all the time. You look for the mix. And in that mix, we have identified different types of media already that play a role, like informational media, educational media, but also entertaining media, because they show you also part of society, which your kids, for example, are confronted with in the future, even if you deprive them from in their adolescence years in media education. And parents play a role in it. I think that the problem starts always, and maybe I'm talking here very much as a father myself, if you try to delegate everything to one type of media. So if my little sons, I spoke about already, if they would only read the youth publication of Der Spiegel, which exists, they would have trouble with their friends in school because they would not learn about anything those guys talk in schoolyard about the newest computer games or the newest music performance of Lady Gaga and so on. If they would only talk to us, the parents, about what is the right stuff they should watch in media, they would miss, again, many important things that interest them, which might inspire them beyond our life and our experience, because they're much more avid users already of their iPad and their iPhones and the other things. So for me, it's a combination of different roles which have to come together, and it might mean, depending on the society we talk about, that parents can profit a lot from TV that helps them to convey certain information to their kids. But I would not make it a golden rule. For me, it's the question of what is the appropriate mix for the respective society, and all of the players, the journalists, the media, the parents, the growing adults themselves, they have to make a contribution in order for the whole system kind of to work ecologically well, if you want so.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Bushra Jamil. I'm the founder of Voice of Women in Iraq, in Baghdad. My question, before I say my question, I need to just give a small introduction so it is more understandable. In Iraq, if you leave the media in the hands of the government, then all the programs are about religion, about Islam, about sectarian division. If you leave the decision to the people, it will be mediocre, shallow, full of nonsense. If you leave it in the hands of businessmen, will be a combination of violence and sex. So
we're terrified in anticipation now of your question.
Yeah.
Where does this leave us? Yeah.
My question is, in media, where do you think, or who should make the decision of what kind of programs you show when it comes to education? Thank you.
Professor Rademacher.
You know, of course, it's a different country, different practice, but we have the chairman of the channels make a decision, of course, but we have a special agency in Russia, I talk about our experience, who support the educational and culture program. If channel, public channel or private channel, TV or radio, won't make the culture program or program for children, where everybody understands it's not give a huge advertising. In this case, the government agency supports this kind of program. This is not a huge money, but in any case, if the channel won't did something, they have a governmental support. This is our practice.
Professor Rademacher, do you want to put your answer into a nutshell? You looked as though there was something you wanted to say in response to that question. Give us a short one.
I think, first of all, Iraq is a good example of a country where, for a number of reasons, the democratic governance doesn't work okay. And therefore, then you have a problem already trusting your own governance system. I think the more general answer to the issues in the room is the main point is balance. And a lot of philosophers said we have to combine the market with, let's say, the democratic system. In the market, we have strong forces that can push society forward, but let's say that $1 is one vote, so the votes are completely unequally distributed. And then we have the democracy, and every person is one vote. And the usual deal is between those two spheres to find a balance that makes sense for the economic sector as well as for the government. And that means in the end that you have actors of the type for profit, you have actors like foundations, you have, with Mohamed Yunus, social business, you have cooperatives, and that is to say the non-governmental sector is business of all kind. But then you have the democratic part where via one person, one vote, you come to a decision that you want certain things. That is what he always referred to. And I think you need a balance between those. So I'm very happy in Germany we have a free television part and we have, let's say, a governmental, partly paid and organized part. So in the one sector, the majority of people has a chance to get its ideas transported, also ideas about quality, about levels, about education, about parents and parents' responsibility. And then there's another part where donators and companies drive things. And the balance is the essential issue. And therefore there was one lady said, is the glass half full or is it half empty? I would say maybe a glass interpreted as a system and half interpreted as balance. Maybe the question is, do we have the right balance? I think the issue should be balance.
And diversity. Two more questions. Stomachs are beginning to rumble, I can sense that, but we've got a fair way to go perhaps. The menfolk want to engage in the debate. Let's take two questions together and then we'll see how we deal with them.
My name is Kofi Anyidoho from Ghana, an educator with special interest in culture. I am concerned with one particular issue that I find as a trend now in my own country and maybe elsewhere, that a lot of the media is now in the hands of the young people, especially the electronic media, the television houses, the FM stations, mostly in the hands of young people, not only as presenters, but also as producers. And my concern now is that many of the younger people don't really have enough education about their own societies. In fact, most of them will turn off to a new channel when the news starts, whether national news or international news. They don't even want to listen to the news. And yet, they are the ones who are running the media now. And I was just wondering where that leaves us with concerns with quality over quality, if any member of the panel can speak to this.
Interesting question. Let's take another one and then we'll put them together somehow.
My name is this working? My name is Vladimir. I'm a professor of media in the United States at a college. And I think that, at least when it comes down to television, this question, the notion of ratings versus quality has been answered, and I think we can say it with certainty that the relationship is it's inversely proportional. The higher the rating, the lower the quality. If you don't believe me, just look at the top 10 shows in the United States in the last a month or so, and you'll find 7 reality programs of a type American Idol, so you think you can dance, what's your talent? If we stay with the nutritional metaphor that you brought up, I think we could surely call these shows junk food shows. So I think we can, with certain certainty, say that the higher the rating, the lower the quality. However, that must not be the only model, and there are other models that could be presented as such. PBS, NPR, BBC, even the New York Times, there are alternative models that are not built on chasing the lowest common denominator, but they're built on building a product. Steve Jobs, the Apple founder, was notorious for not responding to market research and ratings, and he came up with a gadget that everybody wants. If you build it, they will come. Question mark, I guess.
Lynn, I'm going to get you to answer that question, but as the second one, we'll do Trevor first on the question about the young people, because we were talking about that before the debate got going earlier today, and I know you've got stuff to say.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could talk about ratings and quality being, we've agreed poles apart. I hadn't noticed that we had agreed necessarily on that, yeah, but, sorry. Trevor.
I think the issue that my colleague from Ghana raises is an issue that we need to deal with very carefully in recognizing that particularly on the African continent, over 50% of the population are young people themselves. We can't wish them out of existence. I think back to your issue about balance, we need to realize that the young people need to play a role. And yeah, it's a bit problematic for myself beyond 50, and I think looking at you beyond 50, to think that there's anything that generation offers. But I think we're very wrong and mistaken if we rule out that generation. That generation is a whole lot to play and a lot to give to our societies. I think the thing is how to balance the youthful exuberance and the knowledge that they bring, the knowledge that you and I don't have, the skills that you and I don't have, with the experience that you and I have at the end of the day. Remember that this generation that we're talking about is a generation that's going to be in charge. They are already writing, they are already forming the societies that they want to live in. It's not you and I who are going to live in that society. So it's important that we take on board what they think are the important things in their societies. I have that problem. I have a 24-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. We live in two different worlds, but they are as part of my world as I am a part of their world. The challenging thing is how to mix the two and make sure that you reach the balance that we're talking about here.
Thank you for that. Lynn.
Now, if I understood your question correctly, and it was more in the form of a statement with a question mark sort of appended, it was how can you say that ratings and quality are compatible when in fact the most highly rated television shows in the United States, for example, are reality shows and some game shows. Whereas, on the other hand, as you indicated, there are media within the United States, the New York Times, PBS programs, National Public Radio programs, that have their own high ratings within their own niches, and they're very high quality. So I find a contradiction in your statement as question, and I would like to return to what several of us have said, that ratings and quality can be compatible if that's what you're aiming for. If you're looking to offer a high-level educational, or to extend the metaphor yet again, a nutritional value, then that's what you do. That's your mission. And you wind up with that kind of product, and you find your market for it. As Mr. Shvedkoy said, we live in an ocean of information now, so you can swim among any number of media if you like, but if your aim is to produce high quality for a niche, for example, the National Public Radio listening audience or the New York Times audience, then that's what you do. There's room for all of that. So I hope that's of some assistance, and I understand that we're about to wrap up shortly, so I'd just like to say the nutritional metaphor probably suggests that soon we'll be all enjoying this conversation over lunch as well.
We're getting there slowly, but let's... There's a gentleman up here who's been wanting to ask a question for quite a while.
My name is Christian Kirsch. I'm working for the International Delphi Council, which you saw the film. And I'm following with great interest the striving for a solution. And I recognize in many meetings I participated in, 90% of the answers we know. We just don't know how to combine it to make a balanced mix. And how to use the power of one circle, of one initiative, to jump on it and to use the power, let's say, to drive or to increase the energy to the whole body. And I liked from Professor Rademacher very much the example of the elephant and the giraffe. We are used in our patterns, we have, let's say, an elephant brain, and we are focusing too much towards one side, one direction. And I believe if we take, for example, culture, education, and media, and sensing the struggling, if we would make sport, education, and media, we would focus at once. What I would like to say is the arts and culture needs a new packaging to become interested for the people. I believe that in some way, one event, for example, in arts and culture, has eventually 5, 6 cameras. If you see one football game, it's 16, 18 interesting cuts, and so on and so forth. So the educational part of the media is not even used partly for education and for the arts, for culture, for identity, where we come from. And huge media guarantees huge sponsorship. So the balance, as you said, is important, and here I would like to focus your interest towards, not because we try or we will increase the Delphi Games of the modern era worldwide. We know it's a forum for identity, for education throughout the various levels of education, and triggering the excitement of competing. Competing, who knows the arts the best, who knows culture the best. And if we, let's say, strive for a higher level, we will shape our life and our families and the content of the media into a higher direction. That's, I would like to encourage you, the competition in the arts, helping culture and education. Thank you.
We have a question. It's not really a question, is it? And you're getting a lot of
applause. The question is
why
you don't unite the power you have.
Yeah, no, but
okay.
I'm fine with that not being a question. I don't want to be critical. We've got one more contribution from the back, and then we're going to wind up.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you very much. My name is Claudia Schilling. I'm representative of Engagement Global and coordinator of an international school exchange program. And I very much liked what you said at the beginning, Trevor, about the stereotypical representation of black people, people of color within the media. And here's just a very short question. What do you give us into our discussions for this forum? What do we have to change? How do we get out of this in order to get a much more even and critical representation, which goes against discriminatory approaches and stereotypical reducing people to certain images, as you said, for example, of the African diaspora, of famine and hunger and all that sort of thing, which is just one part. It's just a single-sided story.
Trevor, that's a tough question to wind down on.
Okay, I'll be very brief. You know, I think this is something that I'm passionate about because it's very clear that there's a very interesting story that is taking place in Africa, over 1 billion people in Africa. There's a lot of good things that are happening on the African continent. If this story was about starvation and all the other things, there wouldn't be a continent right now. But there's a lot of good things that are happening right now. I don't know whether you are aware that as we sit here, Nokia, for instance, has decided that their headquarters are going to be for the Middle East, Asia, in Africa. Their headquarters are going to be in Nairobi. IBM is doing the same thing. Samsung is doing the same thing in Africa. There's a whole revolution that is taking place in Africa. There's a whole lot of beautiful stories that are happening. But here is the thing. If the Western media continues with this fascination about the bad and the ugly on the African continent, there's a danger that the Western media is not going to engage with Africans, that Africans are going to choose other platforms as sources of information. And it's already beginning to happen. Those media that think that they should spend their time on those negative issues are receiving lower viewership as far as Africans are concerned in the diaspora and on the continent. Channels, I'm sorry to say, like Al Jazeera and so forth, are seeing increased viewerships on the African continent because they realize that there is a story, if you go down, that is to be told about what Africans are doing. Africans are making huge strides around technology. Africans are building apps which are absolutely amazing. Africans are on the cutting edge of how to use mobiles as payment platforms and things of that nature. But it takes, and here is the thing, it takes an informed media to know about those things. A media that's not informed is going to continue to perpetrate the ignorance of old that says Africans are good at only the bad things. That's my short response to you.
Thank you very much for that, Trevor. Jana, before we really do wrap up, have you got any final comments that have come through your way?
Actually, the remarks from Mr. Kube are very heating up the Twitter from the beginning, right on. They were very interested in this whole stereotypical question, which the lady just asked. And they are also discussing always the definition of quality. I think some were not too satisfied with the answers. They wish they would be a bit more on point, but I think the discussion is continuing online, so I'm sure we'll get good results there as well.
Okie dokie, Jana, thank you very much for that. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed the debate today. I hope it's been useful to you. I have found it very inspiring. I'm very grateful. I'm not going to name them all individually. I'm just going to say thank you very much to each and every one of you. Indeed, thank you for participating and being here today. Yeah?